Tokyo Ghoul is a manga that was written by Sui Ishida. It's a dark story that features a boy, Ken Kaneki, as he ventures into the world of ghouls, and how he's not only changing physically, but changing emotionally as a person. It's a story that features a lot of action, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of introspection, great character development, a plethora of jaw-dropping moments, and twists and turns the likes of which you may have never seen before. The manga was originally released on September 8th, 2011, and it ended on September 18th, 2014. It had a 3-year run, and it subsequently had an anime version as well. Although, not as many people are fans of the anime as compared to the manga, since the character development is not as good, and they changed the course of certain events. However, I'll let you be the judge of that as we explore the world of Tokyo Ghoul, the manga. Beings known as ghouls hunt down humans as a source of food. Best friends, Hide and Kaneki, discuss the incident, remarking how the ghouls disguise themselves as humans. Hide then calls over a cute coffee girl, whose name is Toka, so he can hit on her. Kaneki then glances over at Rize, whom he thinks is rather cute. The two share interest in the same author, propelling them to go out on a date. Kaneki notices that Rize barely touches her food. Rize is scared to walk home, since there have been numerous ghoul attacks near her house. Kaneki decides to walk her home, but she eventually sinks her teeth into him, admitting that she's a ghoul. Kaneki attempts to escape, but is gouged by one of her claws. As she gets ready for her meal, steel bars fall on top of her. Kaneki later wakes up in the hospital, with the doctors using Rize's organs to save his life. As more time passes by, Kaneki thinks of how the events of that day don't feel real. He proceeds to eat his hospital food, noticing that it's repulsive to his taste buds. He later goes to get some burgers with Hide, commenting that it tastes like pig intestines. Kaneki watches a news report that says that ghouls can subsist on 1 human per month, and cannot digest nutrients of non-human origin. Kaneki continues to starve. One day, he sees Toka kill a perverted man that was hitting on her. "Do you want some?" says Toka to Kaneki. Toka wonders why Kaneki won't eat, as he runs away in fear. Later on, Kaneki stares at the others on the street, thinking of them as tasty morsels. What is this? Kaneki then prepares to gouge out the ghoul's organs to turn him back into a human again. Unfortunately, the knife can't penetrate his skin. Kaneki then approaches Toka, begging for her help. Toka refuses, but her boss decides to help him out, and thusly gives him a small package. Yoshimura informs Toka that Kaneki received his organs from Rize. Upon returning home, Kaneki tosses the meat away and discovers that he can tolerate the taste of coffee. After buying a grocery bag of coffee, Kaneki is drawn in by an intoxicating smell, as he finds a ghoul eating a human. Nishiki kicks off the head of the ghoul, claiming he's on his feeding ground. Kaneki recognizes Nishiki from the convenience store. Nishiki threatens Kaneki for invading upon his turf, but Toka claims that it's Kaze's region. The two resolve their dispute through a battle, with Toka coming out ahead. Toka then forcibly shoves the human meat into Kaneki's face. Kaneki resists, claiming he's still a human and not a monster like her. Toka slams his head against the wall in rage. He is neither human nor ghoul, and the hunger of a ghoul is literal hell. Kaneki returns to school shortly afterwards, covering his ghoul eye with a patch. Hide notices he's not eating much, and Kaneki remarks that if he descends too far, he might never be able to see his friend again. They then barge into a room with Nishiki inside, causing Kaneki to freak out by his intimidating presence. The three then head to Nishiki's house to retrieve a CD, but stop off for some fish-shaped pancakes. Kaneki is surprised that Nishiki can consume the food and blend in with human society so seamlessly. Nishiki then corners the two and knocks Hide out. He claims that Kaneki was planning to eat Hide, but Kaneki rejects this. Nishiki knocks him down, noticing how frail Kaneki is. Kaneki rushes in to save his friend, yet Nishiki sends him flying back with a kick. Nishiki continues to berate him, as Kaneki feebly attempts to fight back. Nishiki then reveals his Kagune, which is a predatory organ for ghouls. Kaneki reminisces about his friendship with Hide, as he angrily prepares for his first real attack. Kaneki rushes in like a speeding bullet, and impales Nishiki with his Kagune. Kaneki then peers down at Hide, as if he were a delectable meal to consume. Toka intervenes, claiming she'll help him out with his hunger. Kaneki later wakes up, finding out that Toka brought him and Hide here last night. Kaneki realizes he's all alone, and has no place where he belongs. Yoshimura consoles him, saying he belongs to both worlds, and henceforth offers him a job at the coffee shop. Yoshimura teaches Kaneki about making coffee, telling him if a human with a large handbag enters the shop, to tell him about it secretly. Toka warns Kaneki not to tell Hide about being a ghoul, and if he were ever to find out, she'd have to kill him. Later on, Yoshimura teaches Kaneki how to quote-unquote eat food to fool people. He then instructs him to vomit the food up afterwards to avoid any negative health consequences. Yoshimura gives Kaneki a quote-unquote sugar cube to curb his hunger. However, he reiterates that he needs to eat meat on a regular basis. A mother and daughter who can't hunt pick up a package from Yoshimura. We then see Mado and Amon, both police investigators that hunt down ghouls. Yoshimura asks Toka to help Kaneki get his mask made. Later on, the two arrive at the art mask studio. Toka introduces Kaneki to Uda. Uda mentions some of the more dangerous wards that sometimes feature cannibalism amongst ghouls. Uda analogizes their existence to a tightrope walker, constantly exposing themselves to dangerous situations. Toka explains that they wear masks to avoid being caught by ghoul investigators, who are relentless. Kaneki then attempts to eat a sandwich, but he still feels like vomiting. Nishiki's girlfriend tells Hide and Kaneki that he's in the hospital. Kaneki then wonders if she's a ghoul. Yoshimura then asks Kaneki if he can gather food supplies. He meets with Yomo, who instructs him to get into the car. They eventually get out, and Kaneki subsequently falls down a cliff on accident. Yomo jumps down to see Kaneki's trembling face at the sight of a dead body. Many people commit suicide here, and they take the bodies for their own purposes. Kaneki becomes perplexed when Yomo prays in front of the body. Yomo then picks up Fueguchi. He warns her that the ghoul investigators are looking for her. At the commission of Counter Ghoul, CCG, Amon berates another officer for not doing what it takes to gather all the necessary information to catch the ghouls. Later on, Amon digs up a grave of Fuguchi's husband to find his ghoul mask, confirming that she must be a ghoul too. Kaneki goes to get some coffee and finds Hinama in the midst of her meal, shocking him greatly. He then returns with coffee to apologize to her. He quickly finds out that her mother doesn't allow her to attend school. Fuguchi tells Yoshimura that they'll be getting their own food from now on, as they can't rely on them forever. The two leave the shop as Amon and Mado confront them. The mother hugs Hinama, instructing her to run. Fuguchi releases her Kagune, preparing herself for battle. Due to Fuguchi's limited fighting experience, she looks to be beaten. Hinami runs into Kaneki, crying that her mother is in trouble. The two rush over, only to see Mado slash her head off in an instant. Yoshimura brings Toka upstairs to tell her that Fuguchi was killed by ghoul investigators. Hinami will thusly be sheltered at Inteku and eventually move her to the 24th ward. Toka wants to seek revenge, but Yomo and Yoshimura emphasize that it would not be wise. Toka leaves in rage as Yoshimura tells Kaneki not to blame himself for the incident. Later on, Toka looks to seek revenge on those responsible for the incident. After two investigators have dinner with Amon, they walk home, and Kusaba gets slashed by someone in a rabbit-shaped mask. Amon intervenes, determining that this is a ghoul attacking them. Amon determines that she's an instantaneous type. Mado steps in, telling Amon not to forget about his Quince key. Mado slashes Toka in the arm, so she's forced to retreat, but she's in considerable pain. When Toka goes to grab some coffee, her injury acts up. Yoshimura tells Kaneki that she got involved with the Doves, otherwise known as the Ghoul investigators. Kaneki looks to treat Toka's wound, but she poses a hypothetical question. Go kill those fucking doves in my place, okay? Kaneki mentions that he'd be sad if Toka died, and asks her to teach him how to use his Kagune. The two head underground to train. Toka says that he must die though, and begins attacking him. She takes off his patch and breaks his finger. Kaneki releases his Kagune, but Toka notes that it's weaker than the one he used against Nishiki. Kaneki is a Rinkaku type of ghoul, which is a strong ghoul with quick healing. Uda then arrives to give Kaneki his mask. He notes a heightened exhilaration when he puts it on. Toka and Kaneki continue their training. Later on, the two wear uniforms and change their looks so they can approach the CCG. Investigators inside talk about the quote-unquote gourmet getting one of their guys. Toka tells Kaneki about the RC scan gate, which can identify a ghoul on the spot. Toka tells a woman false information about Hinami. The woman says that killing a young woman is heart-wrenching, but since ghouls aren't humans, it's only natural that they destroy them. Mado runs into Toka, wanting to hear her side of the story inside the building. Mado becomes impatient, dragging Kaneki through the RC gate. Toka says she needs to go to cram school, and Kaneki chases after her. Afterwards, Mado wonders if his senses are becoming dull, since the RC gate didn't pick up on the fact that Kaneki was a ghoul. Nakjima goes to dinner with Amon, and he cries over the fact that Kusaba is now dead due to a ghoul. Amon then trains in his apartment, saying he'll bring justice to this incorrect world. Kaneki sees a newspaper clipping about the dead investigator. Toka checks up on Hinami, handing her a newspaper to practice her reading. Hinami gets to the part about the dead investigator, making her extremely worried about Toka's actions. Later on, Kaneki and Toka check up on her, but she ran away. Toka runs ahead as Kaneki calls the manager. Toka finds Hinama crying under a bridge as she holds her mother's hand. Toka promises that she'll protect Hinami. Toka calls Kaneki as Mado walks in. Amon rushes over but is cut off by Kaneki. Kaneki lunges in, but is pinned against the ground by Amon. Kaneki's anger boils over as Amon pulls out his Quinque. Mado determines that Toka fed them false information. He thusly pulls out his Quinque and attacks Toka. He pulls out a second suitcase with another Quinque, saying that they are made of the Kagune of Ghouls, this one being of Hinami's mother. Toka attacks with fury. Mado hits Toka, saying he took down Figuchi with her husband. Toka says she just wants to live like other humans, yet Mado prepares for his finishing attack. Amon questions Kaneki on why ghouls kill innocent people, as he claims they are the ones corrupting this world. Kaneki doesn't know how to respond to this, but he thinks of how ghouls have feelings too. Because Kaneki is both human and ghoul, he'll make Amon understand that everyone deserves a chance at life. After some back and forth, Kaneki lunges in to bite down on Amon. Kaneki's Kagune emerges as he destroys Amon's Quinque in an instant. Amon thinks it's all over, but Kaneki instructs him to run away. Don't make me kill a person. Mado notices that his right hand is missing, as Hinami activates her Chimera Kagune. Mado becomes excited, wanting Hinami's Kagune for himself. Hinami then slices off his leg. Amon wonders why he was spared, as he needs to head towards Mado ASAP. Kaneki thinks about eating a person, as he wonders why he's saying this. Kaneki then attacks a hooded person, saying how hungry he is. The man he attacked was Yomo, as he hands him a package of human meat. Hinami's Kagune then reverts, as she wants to see her parents once more. Before Mado can attack, Toka finishes him off. Toka notices a wedding ring on his finger, realizing that he has a family too. Yomo is okay as they pick up Hinami. Amon returns to Mado as he cries profusely. With this incident, more investigators are bound to show up to this ward. Kaneki then thinks about how Amon said that this world is wrong. Amon reminisces about the first time he met Mado. Their first assignment was checking if an old woman was a ghoul. After testing her, Amon stormed away because he was angry with Mado for suspecting her in the first place. Amon runs into her again, seeing blood seep from her luggage. She attacks him with Amon meekly attacking back. Mado gives Amon useful advice, as Amon comes back to reality, thinking of how proud he was of Mado. It's been 10 years since a ghoul investigator died in the 20th ward. The CCG will thusly increase their efforts in the rabbit investigation. Kaneki visits the doctor to see how things are going, finding out that Rizei's family doesn't want to see him. Hide shows Kaneki a newspaper article talking about the daughter and the rabbit. Hide draws a connection between the two, freaking out Kaneki. At work, Kaneki apologizes to Yoshimura for acting on his own, yet the manager is pleased with his efforts. Yoshimura then says that Hinami is living at Toka's place. Toka's friend at school has her eat some meat, which she attempts to throw up in the bathroom. Toka meets Kaneki outside of her apartment, as they walk in to greet Hinami. Toka's friend from school, Yoriko, then shows up to give her a meat and potato stew. Out of kindness, Toka forces herself to eat it out of respect, but immediately vomits it out. A mysterious man breaks into a woman's house for unknown reasons. Kaneki and Toka continue their training, as Yomo walks in and instructs Kaneki to hit him. Toka and Kaneki then combine their efforts, but Yomo is too quick for them. The young woman from earlier walks the streets, with her eyes gouged out. The quote-unquote gourmet ghoul then walks into the coffee shop, yet Toka shoos him away after some idle talk. Shu, the gourmet ghoul, then notes that he has a strong interest in Kaneki's scent. Shu then sits down with Kaneki at an outdoor table. They talk about books for a while, until Shu mentions how he's on the outs with the other ghouls in the 20th ward. Kaneki feels bad, so they agree to see each other in 3 days to talk about books again. Yomo takes Kaneki to the 14th ward, where he meets a woman, Itori, who scares him with a prank. Itari takes Kaneki to her bar, the Helter Skelter. She tells him that Yomo and Uda caused trouble in the 4th Ward when they were teenagers. Itari splashes some blood in Kaneki's face, revealing his Kakugan eye. Itari informs him that one-eyed ghouls are rare, but they are vastly superior to a full-blooded ghoul. They instruct Kaneki to avoid the other one-eyed ghoul, for the rumors say he or she practices cannibalism. Kaneki finds out that he was the bait in a plan to kill Rize. Itari thusly will trade information with him if he finds out about the ghoul restaurant from the Gourmet. In his search for the restaurant, Kaneki finds Nishiki being beat up. Kaneki then defends him against the thug ghouls. They then mistake him for the ghoul that killed the investigator in the 20th Ward, and thusly run away. Kaneki drops off Nishiki as he gets attacked by Kimi with a taser. Afterwards, Kimi begs Kaneki not to say anything about Nishiki, since harboring a ghoul is worse than harboring a human criminal. Though Kimi is a ghoul and knows what Nishiki is, she prefers to stay by his side, making Kaneki think that it would be nice if ghouls and humans could coexist. Kaneki meets up with Shu to have some iced coffee and discuss books. Kaneki then brings up Rize. Shu labels her a pig for ridiculing his gourmet food. Shu heads to the bathroom, where we learn that he desires Kaneki as a new type of feast. Shu takes Kaneki to his gourmet club. Kaneki is instructed to take a shower and is given a fancy suit to wear. He meets up with 2 other people who are told to do the same thing as him. They are then taken to another room where they are locked inside. The ceiling opens up as they find out that they are the ones being served for dinner. The other ghouls are skeptical about eating Kaneki since he's a ghoul, but Shu reassures them that his scent is intoxicating since it gives off a pronounced human smell. Now then, shall we enjoy the ultimate gourmet meal? A scrapper then enters the room to prepare them to be eaten. The scrapper rips apart Kobachi's right arm and tosses him amongst the ghouls. Amy, one of the other sacrifices, then kicks Kaneki down, telling him to act as a decoy. The scrapper then catches Amy and smashes her down. The scrapper then clutches onto Kaneki and attempts to saw his arm off, but it's ineffective. They then hand the scrapper a rather crude quinquet to Kaneki's horror. Kaneki then breaks the scrapper's elbow. Kaneki, however, begins to feel weak due to the poisonous gas he's been inhaling. Kaneki then releases his Kakugan, surprising everyone. Shu then tears the scrapper to shreds. Madame then decides to delete the scrapper instead of Kaneki, as Shu tells Kaneki this was merely a joke and instructs him to forget about what happened. After waking up from a nightmare, Kaneki tells Yomo, Yoshimura, and Hinama about the things he saw last night. Yoshimura states that a ghoul must strengthen their heart and forget about the value of life if they have to live peacefully. Kimi then arrives at the coffee shop, telling Kaneki that the wound on Nishiki's stomach hasn't healed. Kaneki agrees to help her. On her way home, Shu captures her and tells her to cooperate with him. Kaneki then finds a letter from Shu, instructing him to come for dinner at 10 p.m. tonight, otherwise the girl will be harmed. Nishiki arrives at the coffee shop as he wants to help find Kimi too. They arrive at the church with Nishiki losing his cool. Shu then reveals that he wants to eat Kaneki while he's eating. Shu knocks out Nishiki and punches Kaneki in the face. After knocking Kaneki down, Toka hits Shu with a surprise attack. Toka and Shu then engage in battle as Kaneki checks in on Nishiki. Kaneki and Toka synchronize their attacks, yet Shu proves to be too strong for them. Shu then tastes Kaneki's blood, and it's beyond his expectations. Toka attempts to fight back, but is pierced by Shu's Kagune. Shu then sees a scar on Kimi's shoulder. Nishiki reminisces about his past, remembering how his older sister took care of him like a mother. She eventually got ratted out by a shop owner and was killed by ghoul investigators. Her final words to Nishiki were to stay alive. Shortly afterwards, he started a relationship with Kimi. One day, Nishiki was in a state of starvation, so Kimi allowed him to eat her just a bit so he wouldn't starve. She allowed him to do this because her family just died in a plane crash, and he came to her side and saved her. In real time, Nishiki attacks Shu with intense fury. Shu bloodies him up, but Nishiki threatens to kill him nevertheless. Toka is currently drained of strength, so Kaneki allows her to eat him for energy. He's mine! Toka then has a surge of energy as she releases her Kagune. Toka gains the upper hand, yet Shu's Kagune takes the shape of a blade as he becomes giddy with excitement. Toka destroys his Kagune, but Shu doesn't lose confidence until Nishiki grabs his tie and slices off his right arm. Shu staggers for a bit, but eventually collapses to the ground. Toka claims she needs to kill Kimi since both Nishiki and Kaneki's identities have been revealed. Toka attacks, yet Nishiki protects Kimi with his body. Kimi's blindfold falls off as she notes how beautiful Toka's Kagune is. Toka retreats, wondering if this is a beautiful thing. Amon continues to blame himself for Mato's death, becoming obsessed with his job. Itari is disappointed that Kaneki didn't get information about the restaurant. She then says that Rize does not exist, as she threw away her previous name. Kaneki then has his wallet stolen by a boy on the street. Some ghouls then look to attack the boy. Nishiki is now working at Enteku. Yoshimura will provide him with meat so he can live a crime-free life. The CCG is currently increasing their efforts. The pickpocket from earlier then slits the throats of the ghouls that attacked him. Two of Mato's previous partners, Shinohara and Hoji, meet with Amon. Amon then meets with Takazawa, who is a junior graduate from the academy last year. Amon still doesn't have a new partner, but the main office is working on it. The 11th ward has become powerless, so the main office is bolstering its efforts so the other wards don't go through the same thing. It is then determined that the ghouls are getting organized to crush the CCG. Amon is then instructed to find the rabbit. They then meet with a ghoul investigator who is dubbed the Problem Child, who turned out to be the boy who ran into Kaneki earlier. The boy then sucks on an officer's ear and introduces himself as a rank 3 investigator, Juzo. Juzo shows Amon his body stitch. Shinohara and Juzo take the binge eater case, as they note that the gourmet has been less active lately. Because of the doves, less people are coming to the coffee shop. Kaneki goes upstairs to feed Loser, the bird, and notices that Toka is acting differently since the day at the church, noting that she'll never be able to return to her previous state of being. A ghoul from the 11th ward, Banjo, then asks Kaneki and Toka about Rize. "Why can I smell Rize-san's scent on you?" Banjo loses it when he thinks Kaneki is Rize's boyfriend. Kaneki then knocks him out accidentally after he defends himself. Kaneki still wants to talk to this guy though, so he can learn about Rize's past. Another ghoul in the 11th ward, Ayato Kirishimi, is after Rize, and he originally grew up in the 20th ward. Yomo talks about the Aogiri tree, a gang who is led by the One-Eyed King. Banjo wakes up and asks Kaneki where Rize is. Kaneki says she left, so Banjo says if he ever sees her again, to tell her to run away. The Aogiri gang raided the 11th ward and are beginning to kill the doves. They are now after Rize for unknown reasons. Ayato bursts through the window and kicks Banjo. Toka walks in and immediately recognizes him. Kaneki then determines that this is Toka's younger brother. Since Kaneki smells like Rize, they want to take him to the 11th ward. Yamori slams Kaneki against the wall. Kaneki releases his Kakugan as Toka gets punched by her brother. As they fight, Ayato says that mother and father were weak for dying. After taking her down rather easily, Ayato instructs Banjo to bag up Kaneki so they can take him with them. After hearing about the incident, Yoshimura thusly shuts down Enteku due to the recent events. Shinohara and Juzo visit a crime scene in which ghouls were cut up into roughly 200 pieces. Shinohara then determines that it was Juzo's doing, and since it's prohibited to cause more pain than is necessary to a ghoul, Juzo will not be granted a Quinque. Shinohara explains that Kagune are RC cells, which have been released outside the body. Essentially, they are liquid muscles. RC cells are stored in a sac called a kakuho, and once the cells are released, they can be hardened or softened at the will of the ghoul in the form of their Kagune. Thus, the Quinque manufactures an artificial signal to the kakuho, which permits the use of the Kagune for the investigator's purposes. Depending on the type of ghoul, one can determine the location of the kakuho. Each Kagune type has its own advantages and disadvantages. Also, each Kagune has matchups which are either beneficial or detrimental to them, essentially working out like a game of rock, paper, scissors. Hide then worries about Kaneki's safety, since he won't answer his emails. Kaneki asks if Toka is okay, but Ayato kicks him in the side. Ayato then brings Kaneki to the purported leaders of the organization. Tatara shoves his arm into Kaneki, determining that Rize is dead. "Do you really think the thing transplanted into you was actually a kidney?" Tatara claims the manager, Yoshimura, is treating him like a bonsai tree for his entertainment. Afterwards, Kaneki is confused, since the manager has been so nice to him up until this point. Banjo then appears, saying they should run away together. Kaneki tells Banjo that Rize is not of this world anymore. They then meet with the members of the 11th ward. Banjo says that Tatara and Noro are under the direct command of the One-Eyed King. The 4 other leaders in the 11th ward are Yamori, the Bin brothers, and Ayato. The group plans on escaping on the 12th day when most of the leaders are gone. After they all escape, they plan on living in the 20th ward. Special Class Investigator, Maruda, then announces he's working on the biggest case in history, and he'll need their help in the 11th Ward Countermeasure Unit. The CCG talks about Jason of the 13th Ward, a man who wears a hockey mask and is quite sadistic. It is decided that Amon will receive one of Mado's Quinkeis. Meanwhile, Kaneki dismantles dead bodies for the Aogiri tree, which sends a chill down his spine. A kid gets accused of stealing meat, so Banjo takes the blame, allowing himself to get beaten in the process. Later on, Banjo notes that he wants to help everyone escape before he's killed. Ayato, Nora, and Yamori are preoccupied, so it's time for them to escape the 11th Ward. Unfortunately, an Aogiri scout spots them, alerting the others. They kill him, but the damage is done, as one of the Bin brothers starts chasing the group. Banjo then uses his body as a shield, as he instructs his comrades to run away. Kaneki, however, cannot bear the burden of Banjo dying, so he goes back to help him out. Kaneki then faces off against the Bin brothers, noting how strong he is. The other Bin brother shows up as Yamori walks in with the heads of the other members of the 11th Ward. Yamori says that if Kaneki becomes his subordinate, he'll let the others go. The Bin brothers disagree with Yamori's way of handling things, so he threatens the two. The Bin brothers run away as Kaneki agrees to join up with Yamori. Pleased with the result, Yamori instructs Nico to lock up the others in the isolation cell. Yoshimura then tells the Anteiko employees that they won't be able to contact Kaneki from this point forward. Since the Aogiri tree is so powerful and the CCG is sending in additional men to the 11th Ward, it is too risky to save Kaneki at this time. Toka then volunteers to go alone to save Kaneki. Since Nishiki, Hinami, and Toka all volunteered to save Kaneki, Yoshimura and Yomo will provide protection, since that's Anteiku's policy.
Amore! Heartbreak.
Shu ate his own flesh to stay alive. Yoshimura invited him here to provide assistance in saving Kaneki. Toka is skeptical about the decision, but Yomo will keep a close eye on him. Itari and Uda show up as well. Yoshimura wants to save Kaneki, but he remarks that it may not be the same Kaneki they once knew. Over 1,000 police and CCG officers have encircled the Ghoul stronghold in the 11th Ward. The Ghouls are using snipers to keep the CCG at bay. The CCG are using Kagune bullets, called Q bullets, to take down the Ghouls. There's a deadlock right now, so Juzo steals Maruda's beloved motorcycle to jettison himself into the building and take out the snipers. You can enter now! We now go 10 days in the past, with Yamori taking Kaneki into his room. Yamori injects Kaneki with an RC suppressant fluid and proceeds to slowly torture him. When the effects of the shot wear off, he feeds Kaneki, allowing everything to regrow, and then he thusly repeats the process of torture. Back before Yamori was called Jason, he was tortured at a Ghoul internment camp. One day, he reversed the roles, and felt the thrill of becoming a human. Yamori tells Kaneki that Kanou, the doctor who saved him, is making ghouls with Rize. Yamori puts a centipede into his ear, and Kaneki begs to be killed. Rize then appears in his mind, touching his face ever so softly. His mother taught him not to hurt others, but to become a person getting hurt. Rize instructs him to look at the funeral service of his dad. His dad died when he was 4, and he was an avid reader, hence the reason Kaneki is enthralled with books. Kaneki remembers how kind and respectable his mother was. Due to overworking herself, she eventually passed away. Kaneki was accepted into his aunt's house thereafter, but she spited the child and didn't look after him. Nevertheless, his friend saved him, but Rize remarks that he might lose those precious friends. She then leaves as Yamori walks in. He forces him to choose who should die, mother or child. Kaneki is pissed that Yamori lied to him about saving the others. He then instructs Yamori to kill him instead. Nico then calls out Yamori for his excessive cruelty, but he proceeds to choke the daughter and impale the mother nonetheless. Rize says that all the bad luck in his life is his own fault. You got tricked by me, tampered with by the doctor, and turned into a monster. This is all your fault. Kaneki wishes that his mother would have chosen him over his aunt, even if it meant letting her die. Rize says his mother died and abandoned him due to her own weakness. To protect what he cares about, he must control his power. He thusly bites into Rize and accepts the Ghoul inside of him. I am a Ghoul. Amon looks like a savage as he destroys the Ghouls. Ayato takes out some investigators, but is surprised by their sheer numbers. Yamori says that if you cannibalize a Ghoul, your blood will become stronger. Kaneki then takes a bite out of Yamori's face. Kaneki escapes his restraints and says, "So if you get eaten, then that's just too bad?" After Yamori gets kicked down, he begins to transform. Yet Kaneki states that this is all just a bother. Ghouls that eat other ghouls are dubbed Kakuya, or awakened ones. Yamori is healing at an incredible rate, yet Kaneki is only getting started. Some ghouls attempt to escape, but Toka takes them down. The Anteiku squad is officially part of the battle. Ghouls have finely tuned senses that allow them to pick up on many important details. Kaneki and Yamori continue their intense battle. After knocking down Yamori, Kaneki begins feasting on his Kagune. Kaneki leaves Yamori in critical condition, telling him to die or be killed by the CCG. Kaneki returns to Banjo with a smile on his face. Kaneki then apologizes for not saving the mother and daughter, and vows to protect everyone from here on out. Yomo's group searches for Kaneki in Building 6. The group confronts a large group of CCG soldiers, which they take down. To increase their range, they split up into smaller groups. Ayato attacks Toka, so Nishiki uses his body to protect her. Ayato says that Kaneki is with the torturer, Yamori, and is already dead. Toka loses it, attacking her brother with fury. Juzo finds Yamori in a pathetic state. Juzo attacks Yamori, excited that he'll finally get his Quinke. The CCG has captured buildings 1 and 2, but then they encounter the one-eyed owl. 10 years ago, the owl cut down many investigators. A single investigator, Kishio, managed to snatch away both of the owl's arms. Maruda wants to avoid pointless deaths, so he challenges the owl with the fewest people possible. Shinohara wants to send Amon to Building 7, but Amon begs to fight against the owl. Shinohara then punches Amon, instructing him to follow orders. Shinohara then activates his wearable Quinke. Toka and Ayato continue their battle, with the younger brother sadistically biting into his sister. We then see a flashback of their father, who taught them to live within the human world. The family then found an injured bird and decided to take care of it. The father tells the two to take care of each other. He then goes out to scavenge for food, but is found by Shinohara and Mado. In real time, Toka calls out for her father. In the past again, Shinohara and Mado continue searching for Toka and Ayato. The two children wait for their father as Sato brings over some food. After the two refuse to eat, investigators barge in and throw a net on them. Toka activates her Kagune, giving them the opportunity to escape. Toka then decides she must protect her younger brother. As teenagers, the two came across Shu and were quick to anger. Yoshimura then had Toka attend school to calm her down a bit. Toka suggested the same for her brother, but he scoffed at this notion. Ayato henceforth left and caused havoc in the 14th Ward. In present time, Ayato looks to finish her off, but in a split second, Kaneki comes in to save her. Moments prior, Kaneki came in to help Nishiki with his opponents. In the now, Toka is surprised to see Kaneki's new form. Kaneki tosses Toka to Nishiki as he prepares to take on Ayato. Kaneki says he won't kill Ayato, just merely beat him half to death. The narrow passage prevents Ayato from spreading his wings, which puts him at a disadvantage. Kaneki holds Ayato upside down, as Ayato claims that close combat is his specialty. Shinohara and his comrades struggle against the one-eyed owl. Shinohara thinks of how Hirako was teamed up with Kishio. Hirako runs into the one-eyed owl, but gets bashed in the head, as Shinohara and his teammate attack simultaneously. The one-eyed owl regenerates quickly from the damage. Both investigators are using S-ring Quinkes, but they are having little to no effect. They continue trading blows until they both decide to activate Arata, a Quinke that comes from Toka and Ayato's father. Yomo then senses an ominous presence. Meanwhile, Ayato manages to deal damage on Kaneki. Kaneki then lies on the ground, asking Ayato to reveal his secret. Kaneki begins questioning his motives, as Ayato is reminded of his father, whom he hates. Kaneki says that when Toka attacked Yamori, Ayato protected her so she wouldn't be killed. And on the roof, when the two siblings were fighting, Ayato could have easily killed Toka if he wanted to. Kaneki swiftly knocks Ayato onto the ground. He then decides to break half of Ayato's bones, 103 in total, to quote-unquote half kill him. Kaneki announces each bone as he begins to break them. Does it hurt? I think Toka-chan has experienced more pain than that. Kaneki is surrounded by the CCG, yet Noro eliminates them expeditiously. Yomo, Uda, and Shu then arrive. Yomo instructs Kaneki to rest, yet the boy wants to fight some more. The three attack Noro, with Uda impaling him from behind. Yomo kicks off the head, yet the Kagune monster heals itself in no time flat. Noro pulls out a clock, grabs Ayato, and promptly leaves. Kaneki says he should walk home now. Amon continues his onslaught of killing ghouls. Amon then remembers a pivotal conversation he had with Mado about humanity's inferiority compared to the ghouls. In real time, Amon has a weapon that produces the best effect of justice, and with this weapon, he defeats the Bin brothers. Afterwards, Amon stares at Kaneki from the building. After a brief glance, Kaneki walks away. Juzo, who was on the roof of the building, saw Kaneki too. Noro then arrives on the rooftop to witness Jason's corpse. He then walks away as Juzo waves goodbye. Two investigators continue fighting the one-eyed owl, yet if they continue at this pace, they'll be consumed by the Quinque. The one-eyed owl then says there's no good reason to kill someone. The one-eyed owl then escapes. Though there are many injuries to the CCG soldiers, the owl did not kill anyone, just like 10 years ago. Maruta finds out that 98% of the Aogiri ghouls have been exterminated. Kishio then requests that Maruta relocate to the 23rd Ward, where the Aogiri have captured the ghoul detention center. It turns out that the incident at the 11th Ward was a diversion to accomplish this goal. We then see Soda and Nico observing the Aogiri base from far away. They are part of the clown ghouls, and they claim that they'll have the last laugh. Toka says that when they get back, they'll have to change Kaneki's hair color. "I won't be returning to Anteku," says Kaneki. Kaneki has stuff to do and wants to become stronger. Banjo wants to be Kaneki's shield, with Shu being his sword. If Shu becomes unnecessary though, he'll be killed by Kaneki. This only arouses Shu's appetite even more though. Toka wants to travel with Kaneki too, but he says she needs to stay in school. "See you, Toka-chan." Kaneki then stares up at the night sky, reminded of the words that Amon said long ago. Toka lies in bed, holding her parents' wedding ring, wishing that Kaneki would go to hell. 6 months after the battle with the Aogiri tree, Amon is appointed to top-class investigator, with Juzo being promoted to second-class investigator. Shinohara congratulates Amon on his promotion. Shinohara says that Mado made a request long ago to the main office to give Amon a promotion. Special class investigator, Kishio, then congratulates Amon and Juzo on their promotions. Juzo tells Amon that Kishio, Shinohara, and him worked together on an operation called Whack-A-Mole. Essentially, they hunted down ghouls in an underground maze in the 24th Ward. Amon then goes to Mado's grave to pay his respects. Just then, second-class investigator, Mado Akira, the daughter of his previous superior, announces she'll be his next subordinate. Shinohara formally announces Akira to the 20th Ward, as Saito remarks that they were in the same graduating class. Saito says that the Gourmet is now active in the 7th, 8th, and 18th wards. Akira then determines that the Gourmet's real target lies in the 6th ward. Later on, Amon tells Shinohara about the difficulties he's having with Akira, but Shinohara reassures him to keep on trying. Akira and Amon arrive at a ghoul restaurant, finding 50 to 60 ghoul corpses. Amon rules out the Gourmet based on the type of wounds, thinking it was the work of the eye patch ghoul, possibly in connection with the rabbit. Amon then asks Akira out for dinner, but she declines, stating it's past her curfew. Shinohara takes Juzo to the 1st Ward laboratory, where they make Quinques. Dr. Koitsu then explains the difference between a Kagune and a Quinque. In ghouls, when the RC cells are released from the Kakuho, they undergo the formation stage, where the RC cells form a bond with its own cell class, the establishment phase, where the bounded up RC cells retain their current status for a certain period of time, and the decayed stage, where the RC cells start to break apart. A Quinque, however, cannot reproduce the formation cycle. Therefore, it cannot vary in its shape willfully like a Kagune. Juzo then receives this Quinque, which he names 13's Jason. Maruta then talks to the head chairman of the CCG about the Aogiri tree. Yoshitoka then tells Maruta that an anonymous person leaked information regarding the Aogiri hideout in the 11th Ward, so they'll attempt to locate him. Amon and Akira drive to the 23rd Ward, bickering back and forth most of the way. They then arrive at a ghoul asylum, where they meet Donato Porpora, Amon's foster father. Akira steps out so Amon can talk to Donato one-on-one. Akira remarks that Donato ran a Catholic orphanage in Japan, and he had a fondness for eating young children. Donato purports to know nothing of what happened with the Aogiri tree, though he was excited when the prospect of a feast was on the table. Amon gets nowhere with the questions, but Donato implores him to chase Alice instead of the White Rabbit. Mabuchi informs Maruta that the anonymous informant is a part-time student working in the 20th Ward. Maruta then interrogates Hide about the Aogiri tree, and he admits to being the informant. Hide has always had a habit for playing detective, and he just happened to track Yamori. Maruta then decides to have Hide work with Amon and Akira as an investigator assistant. and Teiku now has a new employee, Roma, who seems a bit clumsy. Roma talks about the devastation at the Ghoul restaurant that was led by the one-eyed Ghoul. Meanwhile, Kaneki, Banjo, and Shu arrive at the Orca bar in the 6th ward. They talk with Gil and his group about the Aogiri assault on Cochlea, the detention center in the 23rd ward. Shachi, their leader, was released, but hasn't returned yet. Kaneki says that if he didn't obey the Aogiri, then he probably got eaten. He then deduces that Rize must have visited the 6th ward at some point, and if they find Sachi, they'll find out more about Rize's real identity. One of the members then says there was an attack on the Ghoul restaurant in the 7th ward. Kaneki determines that the target was Madame A. In a flashback, at the restaurant, Kaneki looks to exterminate the Ghouls. Madame A looks to escape, but Kaneki gives chase. Despite this, he is stopped by 2 mysterious Ghouls in black and white clothing. Kaneki then determines that Kanou is still conducting experiments using Rize. In the now, Gil attacks Kaneki for being involved in the restaurant attack. Kaneki takes care of business rather easily. At their base, Kaneki gives Hinami a haircut. Kaneki visits Itari to hand over a list of escapees from Cochlea. In exchange, he wants information regarding Kanou. She then states that Kanou was previously a coroner at the CCG. Kaneki then wonders what Kanou's true objective is. Nico from the Aogiri tree then walks in, giving Kaneki the chills. Nico states that he was only hanging out with Yamori and had no interest in the Aogiri tree. To build trust, Nico tells Kaneki that the Aogiri is composed mostly of ghouls from the 24th ward. Their goal is to smoke out the liar, but he doesn't elaborate further on this, since he doesn't know. Nico then reveals the identity of the one-eyed king to the shock of Kaneki. Itari then reveals that the rabbit has been killing doves recently. In the 7th ward, the rabbit obliterates 2 investigators. A man in a mask fights Banjo, tossing him off of a building in the process. Kaneki then takes off his mask and saves Banjo. Hinami admits to staying with Kaneki to help keep him company, since he always looks so sad. Shu then gives flowers to Hinami and Banjo. Kaneki comes in and the 3 debrief each other on the information they've gathered up until this point. Shu then recommends they head to the 20th ward to investigate Kanou's general hospital. At the hospital, Kaneki finds out from the nurse that Dr. Kanou is on a business trip to Germany. At school, Hinami embraces Toka with a warm hug. Hinami then asks Toka if she wants to see Kaneki. Before she responds, Yuriko hands her a present from a man that was wearing an eye patch. Toka runs outside but is unable to locate Kaneki. Banjo looked into the traveler list at the airport and never found Kanou's name. Meanwhile, Dr. Kanou speaks to Shiro about his failed test subjects. He thusly must wait for Rize to generate another Kakuho. Amon, Akira, and Hide wonder if the Black Rabbit is the same one they've been chasing all this time. Based on Hide's observations, he thinks there are 2 different people. Shinohara then comes in and mentions the story with the girl dying under the beams. Dr. Kanou henceforth transplanted her organs into Ken Kaneki, but at the moment, no one knows where either of them are. Hide then admits that Kaneki is his best friend. Meanwhile, Kaneki plans on capturing the nurse from the hospital to interrogate her about Kanou. 3 ghouls in white suits beat them to the punch, so Kaneki drops down to stop them. The lead ghoul cries over Yamori's death, as Sachi nearly comes crashing down on Kaneki. Sachi's speed and strength is impressive. Naki then slashes Shu's face, as Gagi and Guge attack Banjo. Kaneki activates his Kagune, which looks exactly like Rize's. Sachi does the same, as he crashes his fist into Kaneki's gut. While Kaneki spews blood out of his mouth, Sachi and the other members escape with the nurse. Madame A reminisces about how she met Kanou. Thinking she could get premium meat, she attacked the doctor, but was stopped by a mysterious figure. Kanou asks if she wishes to be an owner, and from then on, she lived a luxurious lifestyle. In the now, Shu killed her children and looks to trap her in a shipping container. Korono, one of the one-eyed ghouls, grabs Madame A and looks to escape. She's then cornered and is forced to abandon Madame A to save herself. Kaneki then looks to begin the interrogation by threatening her with a centipede. Meanwhile, Shinohara and Juzo arrive at Inteku, looking for Kaneki. Shinohara speculates that the binge eater is a young female ghoul. Toka goes over to take their order, and Shinohara questions her about Kaneki. Juzo then asks her if she vomited. Yoshimura then intervenes, answering several questions about Kaneki. Tatara finishes up interrogating the nurse about Kanou's whereabouts. He then tosses her foot to Naki. Kanou owns an abundance of real estate and went to Germany as a research assistant to study ghouls. Amon contemplates Shinohara's theory about Rize, Kaneki, and Kanou. He also thinks about for what reason was a ghoul's organs transplanted into a human. Amon determines that either Kanou or Kaneki are Alice. Meanwhile, Kaneki trains at their stronghold, realizing he's got to become much stronger if he wants to take on the Aogiri tree. Kaneki requests Shu's sword for training, which he happily obliges. We then see a brief flashback of Kurono and Shiro when they were adolescents. Kaneki's group, along with Madame A, then arrive at Kanou's mansion. Kaneki then finds a picture of the family that lived here previously. Shu remarks that the mother and father were killed by a ghoul, with the children witnessing the entire incident. Kaneki threatens Madame A for more information. Meanwhile, Dr. Kanou, Shiro, and Kuro watch the Kaneki group. Please welcome them. Graciously, of course. Alright, Papa. As the Kaneki group wander through the basement, they take out one of Kanou's failed experiments. Shiro and Kuro then block the group's progress. Kaneki runs ahead, with Shu battling the twins. In the midst of the battle, Naki accidentally halts the twins from attacking Shu. Naki claims he'll take Kanou, as Banjo is surprised to see Edo. At a dead end, Kaneki is confronted by Sachi. Kaneki aims for his eyes, since that's a ghoul's weak point. But Sachi dodges this. Naki clashes with Shu. In the chaos, Banjo heads towards Kaneki to serve as his shield. Kaneki and Sachi continue their battle. Despite this, Kaneki is pissed that his opponent was holding back. Kaneki continues his rage-fueled attacks with his Kagune. Edo then reminds the twins that Kanou is not their real father, and nothing will ever change that. Edo dodges their moves with ease and claims that Kanou is using them. Banjo enters the scene, with Edo removing his ribs without him even noticing. Kaneki wants to cannibalize Sachi to become stronger, but the hulking man prevents this from happening. Kaneki can't believe that Sachi has taken so little damage up until this point. Dr. Kanou then walks in and says, "Have you been taking your medicine, Kaneki-kun?" Rize stares up at Kaneki. Kanou considers Kuro and Shiro failures, remarking that Kaneki is his ultimate creation. He created the one-eyed ghouls to break free from the birdcage that is holding back the rest of the world. Kaneki calls the doctor a psycho for what he's doing. Kanou, however, cares not for Kaneki's criticisms. He then requests Kaneki to join him so he can show him the hidden truth. For example, Yoshimura gave birth to the Aogiri tree. Kaneki is at a loss for words. Just then, Yomo comes crashing in with Rize in his hands. He tells him to choose his own path as he escapes. Kaneki heads towards Kanou but is cut off by Sachi. Kanou looks forward to the day when they can meet again as Kaneki fights off the various test subjects. The CCG begins their assault by infiltrating the lab. The twins remember Juzo as he looks to eliminate them. Naki and Shu forge a temporary alliance to fight off the doves. Kaneki then attacks Shinohara in the form of a centipede. Kaneki is a half Kakuya, as Shinohara reveals his Arata armor. Akira battles with Naki, impaling him with her Chimera Quinque, which combines two different types of Kagune. Shu then interferes. As Juzo battles with the twins, his abdomen gets cut open. In the past, the twins were taken care of at the CCG Academy Junior. It is there that they met Rei, whom would eventually be known as Juzo. Rei skipped classes and possibly murdered cats in his spare time. In his youth, he was raised by ghouls. While talking to Amon one day, the twins found out that Kasuka, Mado's wife, was killed by the one-eyed ghoul. The twins then verified that Rei was the one killing all the animals at the facility. In real time, Juzo stabs Kuro's left eye. Juzo proceeds to stab Kuro multiple times, showing no remorse. Juzo then uses 13's Jason to gash into Shiro. Kuro grabs Shiro, intending to bring her to Kanou to be saved. While dodging the CCG, Kaneki determines that to live is to eat others. He then recalls the torture experiments with Yamori, as Shinohara notes that this is the craziest ghoul he's ever encountered. Shu remarks that Kaneki has only eaten ghouls in the past 6 months to gain power, but as a result, he's losing his consciousness. Akira then releases a CRC grenade that inhibits Kagune. Naki kicks Akira onto the ground, but is stopped by Amon's ferocious attack. Shu and the three then retreat for the time being. Shinohara battles with Kaneki. We then find out that he studied under Iba and Mado. His two greatest accomplishments were taking down the demon Yamada and using the Arata corpse picker, which came from a ghoul who cannibalized his own kind. Kaneki looks to be defeated after Shinohara's attack. However, he then summons another Kagune. Kaneki, in the blink of an eye, gashes into Shinohara like a wild beast. Shu bickers with Banjo's underlings as the man himself comes back into the fold. Amon then notices Shiro, but she runs off before he has a chance to talk to her. Amon and Akira then arrive at the room with Kaneki as they see him devouring Shinohara. "One-eyed!" screams Amon. Amon questions Kaneki on why he was crying that night they first fought. Amon then remembers the time he found out that Donato killed young children. Juzo then pierces Kaneki with some knives. He then activates 13's Jason to gash into Kaneki. Amon looks to finish things off, as Kaneki puts his head on the ground and says he doesn't want to eat anymore. He then uses this momentary lapse to escape. Juzo wants to give chase, but Amon says Shinohara comes first. Kaneki then runs into Banjo and sticks his hand straight through his chest. Kaneki knocks the others down as he begins to lose his mind. He then realizes his mistake and apologizes profusely for what he's done. Luckily, Banjo's Kagune heals his fatal wound. Before saving anyone else, please, I want you to be saved first. Shinohara manages to survive the ordeal. Juzo makes light of the situation, which pisses off Amon to no end. Meanwhile, Kanou watches the entire proceedings with Edo. Kuro brings in Shiro, yet Kanou states that the damage is irreversible and to let her go. Outside, Yomo stares at the mansion as he holds Rize's body in his hands. Though Kaneki is down on himself, Shu reminds him that he'll always be by his side. Kaneki then asks Hinami if she wants to go to a book signing with him. Shinohara is recovering in the hospital. After talking about Kaneki, Aiwa shows Shinohara side-by-side pictures of the one-eyed owl from 10 years ago and the one they recently fought, and they look different, suggesting that maybe there's two different owls. Kaneki and Hinami go to the book signing, as the author, Takatsuki, is running late because she overslept. Kaneki and Hinami reach Takatsuki, with the boy expressing his deep knowledge for the author's work. As they leave, Hide walks up and has her sign the book for his friend, Kaneki. Takatsuki then says she wants to write her next book about ghouls. Amon and Sato discuss the incidents at the mansion as Akira walks in. After some work, the three decide to go out for dinner. The two younger investigators appear to be drunk, much to Amon's surprise. Hoji then calls an angry Sato and requests him to handle a leak with his reports. Sato leaves, and Akira begins talking about her father's obsession for enacting revenge on the one-eyed who killed his wife. She then blames Amon for not being at her father's side when he died. Amon Kotaru, I hate you. Amon blames his lack of power, which is why he vows to protect those who his senior cared about. Akira then passes out. Kaneki then visits Uda, asking him about the secrets of Yoshimura, Yomo, and Inteku. Amon drops off Akira at her apartment. When he gets ready to leave, she grabs his hand. She then proceeds to take off her pants and begins to cough. So Amon brings her some medicine. She then grabs him again and begins crying about her father. Amon proceeds to perform push-ups all night long, berating his own inexperience. In the morning time, Akira then jokingly labels Amon a pervert. She then apologizes for the incident and goes off to work. Long ago, Uda managed the 4th ward with an iron fist. Yomo roamed into the ward one day, and it was easy to see that they were evenly matched. Through their fighting, they gradually opened up to one another. Uda discusses the actions in the 4th ward, noting that Kishio is the source of their troubles. Uda then determines that Yomo might be connected to Kishio in some fashion. Yomo reveals that his older sister was killed by Kishio, and he wants to exact revenge on him. The ghouls then ambush the investigators, with Hirako attacking Uda. The fight is then put on pause when Kishio arrives, angering Yomo to no end. Kishio blocks Yomo's attack. Kishio then fires an electrical shock at Yomo, noting how fast he is. Yomo looks for a fatal blow, but then Hirako comes flying in to slash down the ghoul. A ghoul in black then steps in to save Yomo's life, the mysterious ghoul being Yoshimura. Afterwards, Yomo worked at Inteku and learned various things from Yoshimura. It is now time that Kaneki goes to speak to Yoshimura himself. Shu then takes Hinama out for drinks as they talk about Kaneki. Shu then heads to the bathroom as Takatsuki comes in to talk to Hinami. She remarks that Kaneki is a frightened person on the inside, despite his tough exterior. Takatsuki is helping Hinami because it may be a good source of material in the future for an upcoming book. Though she'll still help the girl out as well. Akira laughs at Amon's face when he eats some spicy curry at work. Takatsuki then arrives at the CCG to provide information about the underground facility. Amon then interviews Takatsuki. She says that the owner of the underground facility managed a trading company called Sphinx Trading. According to the writer, Sphinx was dissolving ghouls into a liquid and packaging them into bottles to sell to the CCG, which they use to make quinkes. Incidentally, the owner of the underground facility is owned by the CCG, and the company's president is Nanao Yasuhisa, the father of Shiro and Kuro. All the pieces are falling into place for Amon as he wonders what the CCG's true existence entails. Kaneki then greets Yomo at his shipping container/home. Yomo tells Kaneki it's for his own good to never see Rize again. Kaneki angrily yells at Yomo until a noise captures his attention. He heads over to the noise and finds Rize in a shipping container. Rize has been starved deliberately by Yomo just to barely keep her alive, leaving her in a sickly state. The Rize he's staring at now is completely different from the one he once knew. If that Rize doesn't exist anymore, then Kaneki states he's just a normal human. Yomo has watched over Kaneki all this time and claims that he's always been fighting with his own strength and not Rize's. Toka tells Yoshimura that she wants to become a teacher. She then goes out to retrieve coffee beans with Nishiki. On the streets, they run into Hinami and Shu. Hinami says they've been discussing things that they can do for Kaneki. Nishiki calls Shu the devil, but he reminds them that they've done nothing for Kaneki up until this point. After Nishiki and Toka pick up the beans, they head to the university. Nishiki jets as Toka explores the university by herself. She comes across a missing poster with Kaneki's face on it. Hide then walks in and recognizes Toka. Hide tells Toka that Kaneki changed after his mother died. Toka yells that Kaneki is okay and he's definitely out there somewhere. Hide then gives Toka useful advice, revealing that Kaneki touches his chin when he's hiding something. A special class investigator meeting is then headed up by Yoshitoki. They talk about the centipede ghoul and confirm that there are indeed two different owls. Kaneki, finally, returns to Anteiku. The leader of the Aogiri tree, One-Eyed King, no, One-Eyed Owl, is your child? In a flashback, Yomo says that Yoshimura is covering up for the real One-Eyed Owl and is able to mimic the owl's appearance. Yoshimura begins by talking about a ghoul named Kuzin, who joined an organization to serve as their cleaner. He killed humans, ghouls, and rival organizations. In a coffee shop, he met Yukina, whom he immediately began to open his heart up to. She accepted him, knowing he was a ghoul, and they eventually had a baby together. As it just so happens, Yukina was a journalist gathering information about Kuzin's organization. The organization caught wind of this, forcing Kuzin to eliminate her, which was his last job. He then left his daughter in the 24th ward with her mother's diary. Years later, his child emerged in the form of the One-Eyed Owl. After suffering a deadly wound at the CCG, Kuzin then served as a One-Eyed Owl substitute. And now we know the rest of the story about how Kuzin would eventually become Yoshimura. Yoshimura implores Kaneki to save other lonely souls, including his child. Kaneki leaves the shop as Toka runs outside to confront him. Kaneki tells Toka that Yoshimura requested him that he come back to Anteiku. Kaneki wants to protect everyone by removing any interfering weeds. You're just afraid of being alone, aren't you? What you want is nothing more than self-satisfaction. It's all so stupid. Toka attacks Kaneki with a flurry of kicks and punches. Trash like you should stay out of Anteiku. Toka knocks him down when he's distracted. Why did you have to change? Toka leaves without another utterance. Kaneki returns to the stronghold, announcing that he wants to disband the group. Kaneki admits that he was wrong, so he thusly wants to return to Anteiku with everyone. They all lend their support to Kaneki. Though Kaneki doesn't trust Shu, he still wishes to use his sword for future missions. At the CCG, Amon gives Akira a keychain gift, which is the first gift she's received from a man besides her father. Yoshitoki asks Maruta to be his vice commander at their next mission. Yoshitoki then requests the CCG chairman's approval for an owl execution plan, the target being Anteiku in the 20th ward. In the past, Juzo performed circus acts to please Big Madame. She then tortured the boy to make him more obedient. He then served as her scraper, which made him lose his value for human worth. Big Madame dressed Juzo like a girl and even had him castrated. The doves took down Big Madame and saved Juzo, but his morals were warped from that point forward. Juzo henceforth caught a CCG staff member skinning cats, so the Bureau merely blamed him for the incidents. In real time, Shinohara informs Juzo about the owl mission. Sato is nervous about the upcoming owl execution operation. He is then prompted to write a will if the worst should happen. Everyone else writes their wills as Kishio keeps his blank. Maruta then informs Hide about the upcoming mission at Inteiku, as the boy agrees to write his own will. Sato recalls that the owl has 6 to 8 kakuho, which scares him to no end. He then writes that he doesn't want to die on his will. Akira receives her Quinkei at the CCG lab, as they're still working on Amon's dojima. Afterwards, the two investigators head to the graveyard. Both of Akira's parents worked in the 24th ward, as it was there that her mother died at the hands of the owl. Akira wants revenge, but Amon instructs her not to act rashly. Akira then looks to kiss him, yet he covers her mouth with his hand. At Inteku, Kaneki then overhears two investigators talking about the owl suppression mission. Kaiko, one of the members of the V organization that Yoshimura previously worked for, claims that the equilibrium is collapsing due to the Aogiri tree. Kaiko demands that Yoshimura hand over the child and pledge loyalty to the V. "I have no child," replies Yoshimura. Kaneki alerts Yomo to the large-scale operation against Inteku. Yomo urges him to go into hiding as the shop can be rebuilt. The Inteku staff destroys all the documents at Yoshimura's behest as he stares at a picture of Yukina and his child. It is then that Yoshitoka officially commences the owl suppression mission. Kaya and Enji wait for the CCG at the entrance of Inteku. The apes and the black doggers then appear to the surprise of the CCG. The owl arrives on the scene, slaughtering countless CCG officers. Kaneki and Toka hear the announcement about the attack on the 20th Ward. Squad 2 Captain, Mogen, launches an attack with the Angel Beat to destroy multiple ghouls. Kaya then confronts Squad 3 Captain Chu. The owl terrorizes everyone in sight. Hoji fires a blast that hits the owl as Shinohara and Aiwa activate Arata's armor. Kaneki and Nishiki talk about the end of Inteku. Nishiki claims he'll meet with Kimi for the last time and then leave the 20th Ward. Kaneki then speaks of a small antique coffee cup that was never used in the store, possibly waiting for someone's arrival. Kaneki wants to join the battle, but Shu violently urges him not to do so. Kaneki disarms him and says, "I don't want to be unable to do anything." Mogen misses Enju with High Mind. Kaya and Chu continue their battle. Kaya looks poised for the final blow, but then is gashed by Araka. Amon leads Squad 4 against the apes, as Squad 1, with Akira and Sato, fight numerous ghouls nearby. The owl continues battling the special class investigators. Juzo then flies in on Maruda's motorcycle to gash into the owl. Yomo tells Toka to pack her things and leave, since Inteku is finished. Kaya and Enji committed heinous crimes in the past, hence they're looking for their punishment. Toka realizes that everything that made her happy is vanishing before her eyes. Toka wants to go back to the manager, but Yomo reiterates that she will die. Kaya ends up on a balcony as an old woman comes out. Chu shoots multiple blasts their way as Kaya uses her body to shield the woman. Kaya releases her Kagune in a weakened state. She charges in at full force, but is eventually cut down. Hirako is concerned about Chu's disregard for civilian life. Hirako recommends they send her to Cochlea, but Chu has no interest in letting her live any longer. Kaneki then intervenes to preserve Kaya's life. Mugen lands a critical hit on Enji, leaving him unable to defend himself. Kaneki saves the day again as he grabs Enji and runs. Kaneki wishes to save the manager, as Kaya warns him that Hirako is quite powerful. Kaneki takes down Chu's squad and returns to Kaya. Kaneki decides to help out Yoshimura and meet up with Kaya after the battle is done. Yoshitoka hears of Kaneki's actions and decides to dispatch Squad 4 to confront him. "Can you let me pass through?" Obviously not. Amon initiates demolition phase on his Quinke as Kaneki releases his Kagune. Kaneki wishes to know Amon's name. "My name is Amon Kotaru!" Word of the centipede ghoul reaches Yoshitoka's ears, as this was not part of his calculation. In light of the situation, Hide is becoming more and more nervous. Kaneki destroys Amon's Quinke, just like their first battle. But just then, Dr. Chigiyu arrives in the nick of time to toss Amon his Dojima and an auto-equipping Arata. Amon knocks Kaneki back with his incredible speed. The burden of the Arata is immense, but Amon may very well be able to bring out its latent abilities. Kaneki undergoes another transformation. Yoshimura struggles on, getting his left arm cut off by Juzo. However, Juzo lost his right leg in the process. Amon has lost everything important to him, and worries what he might lose next. Kaneki then slices off Amon's right arm in the blink of an eye. Amon thinks of his parents and Donato as he collapses to the ground. Abruptly, Amon's Quinke obliterates Kaneki's abdomen, where Rize's Kakuho was transplanted. His body won't regenerate as he screams for the manager. The investigators continue tearing down the owl. Hoji steps in to land a critical blow on Yoshimura. Messages are received that the owl has been defeated. Just then though, the one-eyed owl appears in its monstrous form. The one-eyed owl terrorizes the special investigators. HQ then orders anyone with a Quinke to converge on the one-eyed owl. Sato, however, heads towards Amon. Kaneki is in critical condition inside the sewer. He hallucinates about Rize and Yamori, telling them to get out of his body. "Yo Kaneki, what's with the get-up? That in style these days?" Kaneki believes this is another illusion. I already know, man. Who cares about that? Let's just go home already. Hide wants to help Kaneki out and asks if he could just fight one more time. The one-eyed owl's onslaught continues. She then cuts off Shinohara's foot and chows it down. Juzo reminisces about his time with Shinohara and how he helped him become the officer he is today. Juzo screams as he watches his mentor get stabbed in the abdomen. Kaneki's wounds have healed and he has the taste of blood in his mouth, though Hide is mysteriously missing. Kaneki then walks in the direction of the CCG's Reaper, Arima Kishio. The scene before Kaneki's eyes was that of death. Yoshitoka wonders how the one-eyed owl could have bypassed the containment net, since there were no holes. Meanwhile, Juzo puts up resistance as he eventually collapses from exhaustion. Mogen and Chu's squads then confront the one-eyed owl. Meanwhile, Kisho stabs Kaneki in his Kakugan. Kaneki experiences pain and fear that he's never experienced before. Kaneki's Kagune pulls out the Quinque, yet he begins to ramble incoherently. It's so pretty! Autumn! You can't go any further than V14. Kaneki desperately attempts to get one attack through to kill Kishio. He destroys Kishio's defensive barrier, yet the Reaper strikes once again. I'll need a new Quinque. Kaneki enters a dreamlike state where he sees his mother. Kaneki realizes that he and his mom were afraid of solitude, hence the reason they go out of their way to not lose anybody in their lives. A previous version of Kaneki thanks his stronger self for saving him countless times. Kaneki's consciousness then turns to ash as he remembers a clown laughing. Kaneki continues counting down by sevens as Kishio stands over his body. Sato grabs a weakened Amon, telling him not to die. Tatara enters the scene, approaching Sato. Amon stands up, telling Sato to run. Tatara grabs Sato and chucks him towards Noro, who cuts off one of his arms. With intense rage, Amon charges in toward Tatara. The one-eyed owl's massacre continues. Hirako fights valiantly, but is knocked back. Just then, Squad Zero enters the scene, with Kisho in charge. Kisho combines attack with defense, surprising his fellow officers. Kisho manages to slice his opponent, so the one-eyed owl consumes Yoshimura in one gulp, and subsequently retreats. After escaping Kisho, the one-eyed owl pukes out Yoshimura and exits her Kakuya. And of course, the girl is none other than Edo Yoshimura, Kenzo's daughter. Shu is besides himself that Kaneki is gone. With an extermination rate of 99%, the operation is ended. Shinohara is now in a vegetative state, and his mind will never return. Amon died during the battle, and although Akira holds it in at first, she eventually breaks down in tears. Kaneki's group subsequently searches for hideouts. Kanou bemoans the loss of Kaneki, yet Edo says that they can simply remake another Kaneki. We then see Yoshimura in a tank, being preserved for unknown reasons. Juzo is then visited by Shinohara's wife, who reveals that Shinohara viewed the boy as his own child. The chairman of the CCG reminds Yoshitoka and Kisho that they must defeat the one-eyed owl. Kaneki's profile is erased on the blacklist, as Kisho receives a new Quinque. We then find out that Uda, Romo, Nico, Soda, and Itari are part of the organization known as the Clowns. Anteiku is gone, and Kaneki is still missing. Yet despite this, she has faith that he'll return to Anteiku. Akira then visits her father's grave, saying she is now a rank 1 investigator. She is now working under Kishio. Good afternoon, Mado Akira rank 1. Sasaki rank 3. Arima special class instructed me from tomorrow onward to learn investigation skill from rank 1. And with that, guys, that officially ends the Tokyo Ghoul timeline video. Now, of course, that's not the end of the story. We still have Tokyo Ghoul Re, and that will be the next video that I tackle. But of course, to support the channel, guys, give this video a like, subscribe, comment, and watch another video that I produced. But until next time, I'll catch you guys on the flip side.